Hello and welcome to episode 12 of From the Wastes. Today's guest is a man who stands alone in a world completely devoid of common sense. May I introduce Here on Mars. Randy, good morning. How you doing?
Excellent, man.
How's your little
How are
corner of
you?
the wasteland bright and early this morning?
Staying alive.
That's all you can do. That's what it's all
Yeah.
about.
Mm-hmm.
Really excited to finally have you on my show. It's been a long time. This should have happened a long time ago.
I guess we're on the Trek Talks, but not
Yeah.
on. Never just like straight up on the show.
Right. Yeah.
And I had you on my YouTube channel,
Mm-hmm.
which was like 2.5 years ago or something.
3 years ago, I think.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe how time flies. It's more apocalyptic now.
Yes.
Than it was.
Yes. It's more fitting to have you on my show right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a perfect time. Perfect time.
Yeah, and we met through Dave, didn't we? Phantom Dark Dave. Isn't that how we ended up hooking up?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Definitely on Twitter. It's hard to recall exactly, but it would have had to have been. I think it was through the Trek stuff.
I think so.
Yeah, maybe he had Johnny on, and then maybe I think I met him through Andy, Black Cat podcast,
Mhm.
and then he had Johnny on, and I was commenting on how much I liked Star Trek, and then yeah, I think that's how it all came together. It was all around Trek, man, which is cool.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Well, I wanted to. One of the main reason I wanted to get you on this show is I feel like I have to let the world know about Here on Mars and about you, the man behind it, and so I want to talk about your music. And what's your first memory of music? What?
It's hard to say, but I the one I usually go with, the earliest one are, my dad had a record player. I was born in 1980, and I'm gonna guess it probably would have been not too long after it was released. Probably like what, 86 maybe. My parents had a record player, and they had Sledgehammer by Peter Gabriel, or maybe maybe I heard that on the radio or TV or something. But it's Sledgehammer by Peter Gabriel is probably my earliest like time I remember hearing music and just being like feeling like super charged about it. You know what I mean? Like getting that, just getting whatever you want to call that feeling, like pumped up or,
Mm-hmm.
Super. Oh, that's awesome.
Now you did a
And
cover of Sledgehammer.
I did.
Is that the reason behind doing a cover of that particular song?
Yeah. And I mean,
Oh.
plus it's just an awesome song.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually the guy, a guy who would come along in my life many, many years later, Scott Reed, a guy who's in a band called End of Story, basically like my brother in music, since I've been like 18 or 19 years old. But I had him guest on that one, vocals and guitar. And I mean, I don't know, he's a little bit more of a child of the 70s and 80s than I am.
Mm-hmm.
He's older, and so it was just natural to have him on it. But yeah, that would be the reason. It was such an inspirational thing. It didn't necessarily like have me, at an early age being like, oh, I want to play music. It was just it was free of that. It was just, oh my gosh, this is amazing and I love it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There wasn't any, oh, I want to do that yet.
Oh, okay. Has your taste in music changed over the years, or did you kind of, you kind of found a music you liked and you kind of stuck with that, or did you bounce from
Yeah.
thing to thing, or are
Uh,
you a musical tribalist? Do you only like one kind of music and that's it?
no, no, definitely not. I mean, I would say like, after that, like all the kids really loved MTV.
Mm-hmm.
I was annoyed by MTV when I was younger. I did not like MTV. For some reason, people would always want to put on MTV and just watch music videos, and I never liked that,
Hmm.
And I don't really get that. But I didn't mind the music. So, in the years after that, we had like MC Hammer and Vanilla Ice and all that, all the little
Mm-hmm.
teeny kitty stuff. I mean, we had those tapes. It wasn't until I'm gonna say probably 90, 91. I was 10 or 11 years old, and Nirvana happened around the same time. Beavis and Butthead
Mm-hmm.
might have been just a little bit after that, but I just discovered rock music, and I really liked it. I guess also Terminator 2, even before that, Terminator 2, I don't remember what year that came out. I want to say like 90 or 91.
Yeah, it was right around
But
90.
yeah, yeah. So Terminator 2 came out and Guns N' Roses You Could Be Mine
Mm.
was on there. And I would say that was like my awakening to like hard rock, and I really liked it, and so I started getting like tapes. Nirvana was one of the first. Megadeth, Countdown to Extinction, their song Symphony of Destruction, came around, and I absolutely loved that song. Like it would come on I didn't mind MTV at that point.
Mm-hmm.
you know, Beavis and Butthead, Headbangers Ball, and so through Beavis and Butthead, it wasn't even through them watching a music video, but it was through them going dun, 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 dun. And I think by that point I was playing guitar, and I was taking lessons, and I distinctly remember asking my guy who was showing me how to play guitar, like, what is this song? And he's like, oh, that's Iron Man by Black Sabbath. And so I went out and got Paranoid and everything. I mean, dude, like that, and I always just say Nirvana and Black Sabbath were the biggest right off the bat musical influences. And then through my teens, back to your actual question, through my teens, there would be like hip hop every once in a while that I didn't mind, like Eazy-E, some of the original, like the first like Dr. Dre stuff that came out when he kind of went his own way and got huge. But I was never that huge into hip hop. But mostly rock, and then classic rock, grunge, pretty much that 90s era stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Alice in Chains. When Tool came around, I remember actually Tool's probably the most inspirational band for me, just because it was right when I was in my teens.
Mm-hmm.
And it was still new and fresh. I actually remember reading about Tool when their very first EP was out. There was a magazine called Rip Magazine that I used to walk down to the store and get, and it was like there was like Rip and Circus and Hit Parader, and basically they just talked about rock music.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, and in those magazines they would have these like full page mail order T-shirt things. So like on it would like be this full page thing, and it would be like rock T-shirts, and they would have little thumbnails of each T-shirt, and so that's where I discovered Slayer. So I
Mm.
had never heard Slayer, but I saw all their T-shirts and was like, oh my gosh. And then at some point in seventh grade, some kid had South of Heaven by Slayer, and so that introduced me. That got me into like all the like metal. Um, and gosh, dude, it always stayed within the realm of like rock and metal for the most part. I did
Mm-hmm.
not like country. I did not really care for the hippity hop uh,
Don't
a
say that.
ton. Yeah, yeah, hip to the hop. Now that's not to say that like I don't remember a ton of songs from back then that I like now. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah, it all changed. It all changed when I went to school in 2002. I went to school at a place called the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences down in Arizona, where you basically like learn to make records and do live sound.
Mm.
And at that point, I just I was looking at it from a different angle,
Right.
and I learned to be able to listen to other stuff while not constantly thinking, "Oh my gosh, this is crap," But and then I ended up liking it because it is good music, and that's when I matured a little bit.
One of the things I like talking to creators and artists about is how do you deal with the doldrums? Do you ever get to the point where, you kind of have your highs and lows where you're totally into it and then you kind of have some times where you're not, maybe?
Yeah,
Do you ever want to give up? How do you how do you push through that?
well, it's never because of the actual like process of making making the music or enjoying music. It's never like actually because of that. Whenever I do experience that, it's usually frustration or just kind of d- being depressed at not being able to get more out there and just seeing the stuff that people freak out and love, and I'm like, there's no way. Like for instance, Bandcamp. Bandcamp, you're familiar with Bandcamp, but for those of your audience who would hear this, Bandcamp is probably like the most popular place like for independent artists to put up their artists. I don't even like using that word. Independent musicians to put up their music for sale. It's a great kind of hub. Um, Music lovers tend to be go to Bandcamp, but Bandcamp is always like they're never just promoting like like rock type stuff by people like me or anything like that. And so I see the stuff that Bandcamp promotes, and I'm just like, there's no way this site would ever like promote anything I do or whatever. And it's
Mm.
just it's like woe is me pity party like
Mm.
BS.
Yeah.
Um, it's just frustration at stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like um just the sheer amount of people out there making music. And also I think we're all still kind of operating under idea that you can still like make music, get like discovered and get huge, and then like have some sort of lifestyle based on that, and that's pretty much dead for the most part. It really is, man.
Yeah.
So it's usually stuff like that gets me burnt out instead of anything having to do with being tired of making music or whatever.
Right. That seems to be kind of the common thing that I hear is that, like, say with writers, they love to write, they love the process, they want to tell stories. But it's just so frustrating that, you create this thing and you want people to see your thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just so hard to get people to see your thing. And hey, you said you didn't like to refer to yourself as an artist. Why what
Oh,
just
I
that,
don't
that
know.
word
It just sounds. It
pretentious?
always sounded pretentious. Yeah. Yeah. Artist. I'm an artist. I don't think that way when other people say it usually, but but it's me personally when I
Oh,
say it.
it's like someone calling you sir.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of. Yeah, it is, man. I don't like saying that I don't like the idea of having fans
Mm.
either. Like
Mm-hmm.
I would never say, "Oh, to all my fans." You know
Right.
what I mean? Like that seems totally like you're up your own butt. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't think that again. I don't think that when other people do it,
Right.
it's me personally. You
Yeah.
know, and I do a lot of ranting and raving, and most of the time, which is the case with most people, it's just me projecting my own whatever
Yeah.
out there. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So,
When you were talking about Bandcamp and all these different things, Bandcamp and basically every social media site, they
hmm
kind of push things out to you that they make you feel are tailored to you. Like through some kind of algorithm or something. And it's
curation.
what's that?
It's curation, and I
Curation.
say, yeah, they're curating. That's like
Oh.
my that's my voice for all the
Oh.
for all the
Well,
new current stuff I don't like.
it's never right. Because say you go to Twitter and you go to trends and it says for you. I check that every
Yeah,
day. Literally, not a single trend on
not
there
a
is
thing.
for me. Or like I go to Bandcamp and none of the music. What I rely on is okay. I like you. I like your music. Through you, I
Yeah,
discovered Nocturnal. I discovered Red, Blue, Black, Silver. That's how I.
yeah,
I don't. I'm not going. I don't rely on any internet website, social media thing trying to tell me, "Oh, this is what you'll like," because I won't. Because I don't. I don't know. It's just it seems very junk mail kind of just
sure,
garbage. And not
sure.
not that what they're pushing is garbage, but I don't trust them to know anything about me and what I like.
Right.
Yeah.
And like just glancing at the Bandcamp front page, I pulled it up right here. It's like that's what I'm saying. Like I don't expect them to do it, but it's not to say that I don't. I'm just some guy making like electronic rock type stuff and it's basically it's not even like the kind of rock that a site like Bandcamp would promote. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And so like it's I don't know. Like everything about Bandcamp is always like the Sri Lankan math death rock scene. It's always weird stuff like that. And I'm not saying weird. It's just I'm
It's
just
very
some guy.
artisan. It's very artisan. It's like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like going into a foo coffee shop and they have
It is.
you know
It is. Yeah, and I'm just very, you know, not like I'm just some guy in middle America doing that. And so I mean, I mean good. I mean, who know you wouldn't know about that if it weren't for that. So I do try to appreciate that, but at the same time it's like, man, you know, I know there's people out there who would like what I'm doing, more people who would like what I'm doing, and it's just hard to like get people to pay attention to you. And so it's like I'm sure it's like a little bit of jealousy. It's
sure.
like yeah, it's like whatever, man. I mean, I'm far from perfect, but yeah, it's fun to bitch about.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's fun to bitch about, that's for sure. But anyway,
Well, let's talk about movies. What's the very first what's the first movie that you remember seeing?
uh That's tough. And that's the first time anyone is that's the first time I actually can think that someone's asked me that, or that I've ever had to think about that. But the earliest movies for me, um, Secret of Nim, let's see, Flight of the Navigator.
Oh, good
I don't
one.
think that was the first one, but that's definitely one that got played over and over and over. We had a Beta Max.
Nice.
Yeah, the little tapes, and I
Mm-hmm.
remember to the store and there weren't hardly any Beta movies, and everything was VHS, and it was like, what the heck? Why don't we have VHS? But but yeah, Flight of the Navigator, Secret of Nim, An American Tale,
Mm-hmm.
Uncle Buck pretty early on, but definitely not super early. It wasn't stuff at the theater. I'm trying to remember. I think the first movie I remember seeing at a movie theater was Mr. Mom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Um but yeah, Flight of the Navigator and Secret of Nim were huge for me.
I
I mean
remember
those movies
in Flight of the
back.
Navigator, I think it's when they have him like in the hospital or something, and
Hmm.
there's a TV, I think, in his room, and it's playing. The group was Blancmange, and that was one of the groups that I listened to, and it was very nobody knew who the hell Blancmange was. You know, they were a new wave group out of Britain, and I remember seeing that, and I can't remember if I was listening to him at the time or it was shortly maybe I started listening to him after the movie or something like that.
Yeah.
But I thought that was the coolest thing because I was total new wave. That's what I listened
Yeah, right, right,
to,
right.
and yeah, I remember that being. And then just plus just
Now
wanting to be that kid, you know, finding a spaceship and I mean, yeah, how
now you
awesome
got
is
whisked
that?
out of your life. Yeah, you got pulled, and they gave you all this cool toys and stuff.
Yeah,
That's what I. He went into that room and they like gave him all this shit, and I'm
yeah.
like, oh my god, that's amazing.
What's your favorite genre of movies? What kind of movies do you like the most?
Sci-fi horror,
Sci-fi horror.
yeah, sci-fi horror,
What?
and post-apocalyptic.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool. Good. Good.
because I've always been. I mean, we talked about this before, but I've always been obsessed with the apocalypse. I remember since the very first time, the first time that the idea was introduced to me, it terrified me, and I was obsessed with it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What would you say are your top three sci-fi movies?
Okay, so top three sci-fi movies. I'm just gonna go with like stuff I've seen fairly recently. Well, no. That's not true. I'm gonna say Event Horizon
Oh,
is number
nice.
one because it absolutely just freaked me the hell out.
Yeah, I was fascinated with that movie.
Oh my gosh, it was so good. Event Horizon. Um, have you seen Annihilation?
Yeah, yeah, we did. We
Oh
went to the theater to see that one.
gosh, that movie is amazing. I
Yeah,
love that movie,
I need to
man.
see it again because I don't. I was just so, I've only seen it the one time, and
That would have been awesome in the theater.
yeah, I think I need to see it again to really
Oh
appreciate and
man,
figure out what the hell's going on.
it's so well done, dude. Oh my gosh, that movie. Everything about that movie is so awesome.
Yeah.
And I would say third one. I'm gonna have to go with like Aniara would
Oh,
be
that's that. Is it
third one.
Swedish
Yeah,
or Norwegian
yeah,
or
that's
something?
Swedish. That's sweet. All those. Well, I mean, Event Horizon's not, but those other two are newer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there've been lots of cool sci-fi movies, and I guess movie wise, I'm not as up on. Oh yeah, this movie or that movie. I have trouble like remembering, but like it was always Star Trek growing up,
Right.
and it was Star Trek, and then around 2009, um, I watched the Battlestar Galactica, the
Mm.
reimagined
Mm-hmm.
version, and oh my gosh, what an amazing TV show!
Yeah, it
I
was.
need
I
I need
was
to
real
buy it.
thrilled when they rebooted it, and
Yeah,
because I was such a fan of the original.
Right.
And so I, God, I, boycotted it. I'm not going to watch it. And
Yeah,
my
yeah, yeah,
wife watched it and would just kept talking about how awesome it was. And so
yeah.
eventually the DVD sets came down in price and I bought them and I started watching it and I'm like, shit, this is good.
Yeah,
And
see,
yeah.
yeah, I had no frame of reference because I had never watched the original.
Mm,
And so I didn't know anything about it.
yeah.
I had heard of it, and all that stuff. I heard people mention it in Battlestar Galactica, but I never watched it. And we were just looking for something to watch, and we put that on. And just how and maybe this is also the thing that I don't like as to where everything's got. But with this show, it was very dark and gritty.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it.
You like the
You know,
dark, gritty.
I liked it then.
Mm,
Now everything's got to be dark and
yeah,
gritty.
I'm just sick of it.
Yeah, they're trying to like what, like the Teen Titans, didn't they like try to make Teen Titans like all dark and
Oh,
gritty?
yeah. Yeah.
And I'm just like, just stop, quit, just stop it.
I agree.
But yeah, it worked for that, and I liked it, man. I liked it. And that's actually like post-apocalyptic, that show.
Oh, yeah,
And
totally.
yeah,
What was the last movie you saw?
the last movie I saw, I tried watching. Let's see here. I tried watching this movie with Ethan Hawke where he's like a true crime author. It's just a straight up horror movie. I
Mm.
tried watching it. I couldn't make it through it because I can't remember something or other. I had to stop watching it. Last movie I watched though. Oh my gosh, I go through these spats where I'll just like watch a movie every night.
Mhm.
I'm gonna say probably the last full movie I watched was like maybe Midsummer.
Oh, yeah,
Flick.
I saw that one.
Ah!
I
Oh, man.
Yeah. It kind of reminded me of watching what was the one, and I can't remember the actress, and I think it just came out last year. Heredity.
Well, it's by the same Hereditary. It's by the same director.
Oh, well, that makes sense then.
Yeah.
Because everything's kind of going okay, and then it just goes batshit off the rails, whacked out.
Right. Right.
And
I have a trouble with like stuff that involves like hauntings or demonic possessions because like because then when it's like nighttime and I have the lights off and I'm trying to fall asleep, every little sound like I'm hypersensitive to, and it's like, gosh dang it,
really?
and it lasts weeks.
Oh,
So
wow.
so usually I haven't seen Hereditary. I really do need to. I know, right? I know.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow. That freaked me out. I just
right, right. There's a lot of movies like that now. Like they have really keyed in on what will disturb the shit out of people.
Yeah.
They have really got it down to a science,
Well,
almost to
they kind of lull you into a sense of okay, there's no big deal. We're cruising along here, and then it's like watching TV shows where you got people sitting in a car driving. They're driving down the street and they're talking and chatting, and then just they get T-boned by some mad
Right.
truck, and
Right.
you're just like Gah! You're
It's-
flipping out, and you just your heart's racing, and yeah, they're doing a good
it's
job.
jarring, it's disjointed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's and it's all by design, and
Sure.
it's like you guys are good at this now.
Yeah.
Need to
Well,
figure out something.
do you read much?
Yeah.
What do you read?
Well, I read a ton, but I don't stray too far outside of what I read. And I a few years ago, I am huge into Warhammer 40,000. Like that would probably, if I had to pick one, my desert island, like I guess universe, desert island, whatever you would call it, like intellectual property or universe or whatever, it would be Warhammer 40K. And if you know, it's a long story, but I got started, as a kid with Warhammer Fantasy and always looked at 40K and saw 40K, but never really actually played it or whatever. And then fast forward to being an adult, I would read about it a ton because the lore is. I do play it. I have like a ton of minis and that I've painted and all that good stuff. But I love the lore. The story behind it is just such a well developed like universe that I got into reading the Horus Heresy books maybe back in like 2015, 2016. And I've pretty much read every Horus Heresy like of the main novel series. So there's 50-ish of those, and I'm looking at my bookshelf and I've pretty much got all of them. And now they've Oh, it is, and now they've started with the end of the Horus Heresy. The Horus Heresy, for the people who don't know anything about Warhammer 40K, it's kind of like, I liken it to Star Wars. How we grew up with episodes 4, 5, and 6, and we always knew that Vader was this guy named Anakin Skywalker, and you kind of knew loosely what the story was. But it wasn't until they made the prequels that they went and fleshed it out. That's what the Horus Heresy is. The Horus Heresy takes place in 10,000 years before the current Warhammer 40,000 timeline. And it kind of, it's explaining why the universe is so screwed up.
There's only war.
There's only, in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. Yep, it is. I mean, I know you're a fellow 40K fan. It's so good. I think the thing I like about it is it is the absolute perfect blend of fantasy, sci-fi, and horror.
Yeah.
It is like it's the absolute, it's just the trifecta.
Yeah.
And
one of the things that really drew me to it was, it's set in the year 40,000, and we have the warp, and we have spaceships, and we have power armor, and we have all of these technological leaps, but it's kind of like, but everything is, it's almost kind of like a medieval, I don't know how to describe it, the way they talk and the way things look, it's got that, everything's very gothic, and it's just kind of got this weird, I don't know how to, you could probably describe it better than I can.
It's got an archaic feel.
Yeah.
They have all this technology, but all of their technology is kind of like left over from a period of prosperity that was millennia before.
Right.
And while they do have a lot of knowledge, they don't ultimately understand how all this technology was created. And this technology is what they depend on for their very survival. And so it's just another one of those things where like it's like them kind of hanging on by a thread. It's just another one of those things that is it's encroaching upon them and threatening their survival, along with all the alien races that are trying to invade, all of the demonic stuff from the warp that is trying to encroach. It's like, it is just the ultimate shitty situation. But the stories that happen in that, and the characters are just freaking amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. There are no good guys. There really aren't any good guys. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's good individuals, but every man, the empire of mankind is absolutely just the most awful, as overused as the word is, fascistic, xenophobic, awful machine that exists.
Well, the emperor himself, he requires how many thousands of souls or whatever? or sacrifices each day to maintain
Yeah,
his presence.
because
You know,
because he's just like this rotting corpse on the golden throne,
yeah,
barely his psychic power is barely holding the warp at bay from basically like invading Earth. And yeah, like he, in order to power his golden throne that he's on, which is another piece of technology that they don't really understand exactly how it works and aren't going to be able to figure out in time, you know.
mm-hmm.
Um, and it's like a freaking broken down jalopy at this point. So yeah, I mean, thousand psychers a day that they have to sacrifice, So it is absolutely the grim. It's what inspired the term grimdark. You will hear people say, "Oh, that's grimdark," and it comes from Hammer 40,000.
Oh, I'll be darned.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Well, you know what? I was going to. We were going to do 3 parts to this
Yeah.
podcast. We were going to talk about all kinds of good, cool stuff, in the good, the bad, and the end. And
Hmm.
I think we're going to skip the bad part
Fine with
because
me.
it's just kind of. I know it's so hard not to get ranty about things, but to be perfectly honest, I'm so sick of everything being, negative and ranty. And I feel like if we were to do this section, we would just be doing the same thing as everybody on Twitter and Facebook and all these different areas. And it would just kind of be. It would just be dead air. I don't think we would gain any kind of
There's nothing
nothing to be
that can
gained. You know
Yeah, nothing that can be said that hasn't been said a million
exactly.
times already that I'm sick of hearing.
Yeah, and I think we both know where each other stand on pretty much all this stuff. I think we
Yeah,
are in agreement on most of it. But yeah, I say we just skip it and let's get on to the
I
post-apocalypse
I
stuff.
agree that we're in agreement.
Awesome. Okay, so saying that, let's go on to something more positive, and tell me how you think the world's going to end.
As annoyingly as it's not going to be like in the movies. The apocalypse is going to be this slow grind into just annihilation. I think that I think eventually we're just going to have too many people. We're already kind of there. There's too many people on the planet for whatever reason, baby boom, whatever. Um, there's too many people, not enough resources. We're not going to be able to set aside differences and figure out a way to survive. And I think it's going to be slow and painful and very not like the movies. Now, that's not to say that there couldn't be some sort of like, you know, arms race with where someone actually hits the button and then all of a sudden we're dealing with, mutually assured destruction. I would almost that would almost be easier, but
Sure.
but yeah, I think it's just gonna be slowly ground out. I think the planet goes on after us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the planet goes on after us, and
We see how the how the Earth reclaims after look at Chernobyl.
sure, that is exactly what I was
The Earth is
thinking.
always going to reclaim, and usually it
Yeah,
always comes back stronger. So
yeah. I mean, and to think that there are animals like living there,
sure.
like, I mean, yeah, they're jacked up, but they're surviving. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they will always. It will continue after us. It's sad. It's really sad. I am like you though. Like one thing you always said that always resonated with me is I'm not hopeless. Like I'm always optimistic
Mm-hmm.
about, you know, about the situation. I don't feel like just because there is an apocalypse, the fact that we talk about there being a post-apocalypse tells you that there is inherently some sort of hope. You know what I mean? And I think it's just I think it's lots of things about the post-apocalypse that we find like fascinating. Obviously, we think it's fascinating that like, what would happen after a complete, downfall of like every structure, complete normalcy just being done away with. But I think it's also having to survive, in that type of thing that
Mm-hmm.
really makes it compelling.
Do you think it's going to end in our lifetime?
Uh it's so weird for me because the idea of the apocalypse, like I said earlier, it was introduced to me at a young age. I think it was from some movie where there was like time travel or something, and they went in the future and everything was post-apocalyptic, and I'm like, what was that? And I think my friend's parents at the time were like, oh well, that's after the apocalypse, and I'm like, what? The what? The what a what? I was probably like
Or if it was
8 or 9.
Time Guardian?
It might have been. It might have been. It was some kid. They travel to the future, and there's like these crazy looking things. But yeah, I just spent so much time thinking about it. There was that, and then I like religion has been a huge thing in my life. Huge thing in my life that's just like hours and hours on its own. Um, but I grew up also, aware of like what the Bible says, like the visions of like in Revelation and stuff. And so um, I spent so much time thinking about it and so much time sure that it was going to happen in our lifetime. And now I'm 40, and I just, if it does, I'm just like, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I spent all the energy I had freaked out about it, and there's
Right.
none left. And
Yeah.
so now it's just like, well, whatever happens, happens. And I truly can't control it. There's nothing I can do. And it's kind of nice, to be honest with you.
Being a father, both you and I are fathers. Do you ever think about what kind of future your your child's going to have?
Yeah, all the time, man.
Yeah.
My son is my son's special needs, and he's only 7, so
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where he's going to end up as far as like, will he be able to 100% take care of himself and stuff like that. And
Right.
so every like financial decision, every major, let's just say major financial decision, um, is 100% based on, is this going to do something that lasts that will benefit him? Um, from I just need to make sure that we end up in a place and have a good support structure. If and when I go, I want to make sure that he's set up and ready to go.
Right.
That's all I care about.
Yeah, I
Um,
think the burden falls on us to you do whatever we can to prepare them for
yeah,
adulthood and dealing with whatever is going to come. And
exactly.
we see everything that's going on now, and you just it's tough to. I always kind of get down when I think of that moment at which they lose their innocence, because that sucks. And so I don't know,
Yeah,
I don't know how much, I don't know what kind of things I should prepare them for, because they're young and I don't want to tell them, look, you're going to have to deal with some super crappy stuff, and here's what it is. Because it's like, oh shit, just let him be a kid, man. Let him have fun. Let him be
I
a
know.
kid, and
Yeah.
don't burden them with, knowing how to, um,
Navigate that stuff.
exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
how to filter
So they're
water
not
when
gonna,
or whatever.
how to what?
How to filter water when the
Oh,
when there's no more, just and then just dealing with society and the public, you know.
right.
So
Yeah. This whole thing that we've gone through has really, like, it really did, um, put a lot of, it was kind of jarring to finally be like, oh, you know what? I actually am going to go and buy enough food
mm-hmm.
that would last us for at least, 6 to 8 weeks if all of a sudden food becomes completely unavailable. And in fact, I've got it stacked behind me, and I have like Mylar bags to put it all into.
Yeah.
Got pounds and pounds of rice and beans and all this other stuff, and it was just weird to actually go and buy that.
But when
Yeah.
you think about it, it's a good idea anyway. Power can
Hmm.
go out, all sorts of things can happen. So
Yeah.
I guess it's a wake up call to,
Yeah.
oh shit,
Without,
maybe I should kind of stock up.
yeah, I think it's smart. I think it did that for a lot of people. And yeah, I mean, I felt good knowing that I was doing that. You know what I mean? That I was
Mm-hmm.
actually doing something. Um, yeah, I'm always thinking about, like, okay, if we have to bug out, you know, where are we gonna go? What are we gonna do? All that stuff. So,
Okay, so let's take a post apocalyptic scenario. I guess it can be anything. Zombies, whatever. Let's just take a generic scenario. Do you gravitate towards the kind of Mad Max lone survivor type thing, or do you gravitate more towards community? Either establishing a community or becoming part of a community. Even I envision kind of neighborhoods banding together.
right.
You ever see a movie called The Domestics?
Yes, and I loved it.
Yeah,
I loved it.
yeah.
That was one
Just
I.
different, different people, grouping together, and anyway, yeah, lone survivor or community. Which one are
It
you
would be
geared?
it. It'd be community, man, because like my first instinct would be to like go to my neighbors and be like, look, if you need anything, you know, yeah, it would be like a community type of thing.
Okay, let's say you
In
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, in our current whatever current type of societal whatever, I tend to get annoyed by community, this and that,
Mm-hmm.
and what, right or wrong or whatever. But you know that it, like, in an actual like scenario like that, there is strength in numbers for sure.
Absolutely. I used to be a lone survivor type when I was a
Hmm.
kid. You know,
Sure.
I used to head up on into the hills when I was 12, 13 years old and, play last man in the world, and,
Yeah.
because that was the height of, the road warrior and all that sort of thing. But, growing up, you realize, oh, that's not going to work. And so, and so, okay, let's say you're the leader of a community, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, I know you don't, but the best leaders are the guys who don't want to be. So you're the leader of the community, and how do you deal with you've got your Alexandria, you've got your little town, and you got it walled off. How do you deal with new members that come in? Um, what's your requirement, or what's your kind of testing process to Joe Schmo comes up to your gate? Hey, I want to come in. Let me in. What do you do?
Oh man, that's a good. I've never had to think about this, or I've never thought about this at all. But I suppose I and everybody else by that time would probably be trained to regard anybody coming in like that, with kindness, but extreme scrutiny.
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know, You're going to have to prove to me over time that you are trustworthy. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know what that looks like. Like, they're probably going to be watched. They're going to be watched a lot. If they leave and then come back and leave and come back, it's like, are you scouting? What are you doing here? You know what I mean?
Right.
So, um, I think for our survival, you would have to say, okay, well, you're not, if you want to be here, you're not leaving for any period of time, and if you do leave, then don't come back. You know
Right.
what I mean? That's tough, man. That's a tough thing to think about. What do you think? I'm curious to
Pretty
know
much
what you
along
think.
the same lines, you know. I mean, hell, you go get a job. You have a probationary period, you know, where
Right.
you got to mind your p's and q's, or you don't, or you get kicked out,
You
or
get
you get fired. So, you know, this is certainly more important than any kind of, you know, working at a Starbucks or something. But
sure.
you know, the probationary period, um, I think would be very important. And along those lines, let's say, what would your how would you deal with maintaining law and order? Would you how would you deal with someone who broke the rules? Well, let me back up. What kind of rules would you have? Well, let's say it's just common sense. Let's just say the 12 commandments, basically. Not all of them, but you know, there's no killing other people in the community. There's no stealing.
I.
There's no, you know, normal common sense stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You got a guy that beats the hell out of somebody. You got a guy that kills somebody. You got a guy that's stealing something from somebody, hoarding food. How do you deal with that?
Oh man. Um, I'm always, and I think we've talked about this. I'm always the first person to, um, I'm always the first person to like forgive, or not. I shouldn't say I'm the first person because that's not true, but I I want to be forgiven when I screw up and and fail and make bad judgment calls and do bad things, because nobody's perfect, and so my instinct is to always forgive. But if you have somebody who, I guess, are they actively threatening the survival of the other people
Absolutely.
in the group? That's
Absolutely.
what it comes down to.
Yep.
If
Yep.
they are like an active threat to survival, then they gotta go, or I don't like thinking of this, but like if it's somebody who like, killed somebody like in cold blood, like it might be safer in that type of scenario just to just to you
Yeah.
know
I get it.
I hate to think that, because I am anti that, but it's like if they just killed somebody in cold blood, like just out of nowhere, you can't you can't trust them. You know what I mean? How can
Mm-hmm.
you know that that won't happen again? Because then if it happens again, it's like, sheesh, you know.
My thoughts are
Um,
that if you have an individual who constitutes a threat to
hmm
others in the community, I don't care if they're mentally ill. I don't care if they're of sound mind. I don't
right,
care. You have two
yeah,
choices. You either put them down or you put them away. Those are your two choices. That's it.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
you can't have one per. You're trying you're trying to survive this world as it is.
exactly.
You
That
can't
change.
have. You shouldn't have to add surviving your neighbor to the list. You
No,
know what I mean? And
no,
so
and
you know, and there would obviously, you know, there would be a trial, there would be evidence that wouldn't, you know, you're just not going to be a dictator that, you know, okay, here's what
no,
happens. Okay. But there has to be a lot of common sense instituted, and that's something that I think is severely lacking today. So hopefully it would come back. I think it would have to,
yeah,
or we would basically die out as a species. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, we would.
that's my
They would either have to go or they would have to go, like
Exactly.
you would have to take care of it.
Yep.
When people say that type of stuff today, just about, think of the most heinous crimes
Mm-hmm.
that happen in our world today. Like, I'm not even going to name them, but like, think about the most heinous types of
Mm-hmm.
things that can happen, and people are like, they should be drawn and quartered. I'm just like, look, you know, we have a completely screwed up criminal justice system. What should happen is those people, in my opinion, should be allowed to live out their life, but they can't be trusted. And so they have to be either kept somewhere
Mm-hmm.
where they're not going to be, it won't be possible for them to be a threat, um, and watched, and try to live out as normal a life and be rehabilitative as possible. And in extreme rare circumstances where the crime is just so awful, then yeah, maybe the death penalty is appropriate, because just,
Yeah, as long as you
I
got,
hate.
as long as you got the proof and the evidence,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah, that's where it gets sticky. Is you know,
Especially in a scenario like that, where you just kind of this ragtag, community group, like you know that whole thing, and having faith in whatever system you've created to review evidence, and collect evidence and review evidence, and having faith in it. I mean, that becomes difficult.
yeah.
um
But you're
in
dealing with a
a
smaller group too. So say
You
you
are
got 30 people, 40 people, something like that.
right.
Somebody's going to see what happens, and it's not like trying to find a guy who did something in a town of thousands or millions or you know
For sure. So there's that for sure. Yeah. Ugh.
um
That's,
what
that's tough, man. That is
I
tough.
asked the tough questions.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of apocalypse would be the hardest to survive, do you think?
The one, and we have talked about wanting to do this. The one that involves the Earth being rendered completely unable to like grow any food
Mm.
and do that kind of thing. So the road, whatever the hell happened in that movie,
Yeah.
that's what it's called, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the road.
Whatever happened in that movie would be the worst.
Yeah.
uh, because you can't, the earth is, the soil won't grow anything, right? In that movie,
Maybe.
am I
Oh
mistaken?
yeah, yeah. Nothing
Yeah,
grows.
nothing grows.
There's
Yeah,
yeah, everything's. I mean, people are eating each other, man. I mean, that's all they got left
that's the
anymore.
worst. I would seriously like to think that that would not happen. You know what I mean? Like, when you
Mm,
see the type scenarios,
yep.
that is probably the most disturbing of all, like, apocalyptic.
Yeah. You know,
When
I
when I see movies, yeah. Go
I
ahead.
watched a Cammy and I watched a movie on Prime last night called Diani and Divine Meet the Apocalypse, and
Okay.
it's this comedy duo, this man and woman, and I think they're a comedy duo in real life. I think I think they're a couple in real life and doing comedy. I think. Anyway, they do this movie, and it's it's really good. It's just kooky, funny. It's kind of annoying at a couple times, but it's definitely worth the watch, I think. And they end up getting captured by this group, and they get put in a cage. And one of the guys in the cage says, "Welcome to the cage." I think he's Russian or something, and they're like, "Hey," it's just this, and um, and so the people that are in the cage, that were already in the cage, are hinting that they're eventually going to be eaten, and
Right.
the woman is like, what? And she's like, it's been a month. It's only, the apocalypse has only happened for a month, and people are already starting to eat each other. And I thought that
Yeah.
was the fun. I thought that was one of the
Yeah,
funniest parts of the
exactly.
whole movie. That it
Exactly.
took a month for people to start mowing down on their neighbor. But
I think I'd sooner die.
what's
I
that?
really do. I think if it truly came down to you can eat each other or you can die. Like, you're gonna run out of people. The act of killing another human being, period, is completely like anathema to me.
especially for food.
But, yeah, and I'm gonna kill it and then I'm gonna eat it.
Right.
I'm just gonna starve to death.
There's
You
there's
know what I mean?
there's something else to eat. Trust me,
There
there
has
is
to be.
something
Yeah,
else to eat.
there has to be. Like, I just, yeah, so that's a scary thing to think about, but I just don't see it ever coming to that.
Yeah, I seriously got it. Um, okay, here's another scenario.
Hmm.
You're in another, you're in some kind of situation, and I don't know. This one gets kind of heavy. I don't know if you're gonna want this one or not.
Heavier than we've already got?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want it?
Yeah, why
Okay.
not?
You're in a situation, and your
Uh-huh.
buddy has no chance to survive. You
Yeah,
know definitively he's not going to survive this. Okay,
yeah,
and he begs you to take him out. What do you do?
I would do it.
Would you?
I would. I really would. And
Would
I
you
think
do it, or would you give him the ability to do it himself?
I would ask what they wanted.
Yeah.
I would ask what they wanted. I have a weird like um outlook on just like death and stuff like that. Like I lost my dad a couple years ago. I lost my brother maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And even before that, like there's something in me that knows that this isn't the end.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
This is just this is just right now. And it's so strong in me that that when it comes to actually being in those situations where you're losing somebody, like I held my I was the one with my dad when he went, and I held his hand until he took his
Mm-hmm.
through him taking his very last breaths. And like I there was a little bit of crying at the time because of just how heavy it was,
Right.
but there was also like I'm seeing this person off. This
Right.
isn't the end, and I know that I'm going to see them again. And without getting into why I think that or whatever, it's something I just 100% know. And so in every real life scenario, which that's for the most part that's the only one, in every real life scenario where I've actually had to be there and deal with death, um that it kind of removes the panic and the fear from the situation. It's really weird,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not afraid of like dying, the actual idea of it. And I would like to think that I'm sure my heart rate would get up if I knew it was about to happen. But ultimately, like, I'm not terrified of it. And so that type of scenario, if you know your friend's going to go, they know they're going to go, and they're like, please, can you just end this? I I think I would be able to do it. It wouldn't feel good. It would haunt me. Don't get me
Sure. Oh,
wrong. I'm not
absolutely.
going to walk away from it, but right there in the moment, every time in my life that I've been through some intense thing, there's some switch that just flips off, and I don't freak out at that particular time. Whereas all the way up to it, thinking about it, I would be panicking and freaking out. But when it actually happens, it's like there's some switch in me that's just like, you don't have the luxury of panicking or freaking out right now.
Right.
Um, and it tends to always happen like that. It's happened like that when I've been overseas in different, weird scenarios and stuff like that. Nothing like where I was, in my life was in danger, but other very intense things happening.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that is a tough question, man. But to me, that's not as heavy as thinking about, your kids surviving and stuff like that. Ugh.
Yeah. That's a tough one, and I find that I just try not to think about it.
Sure.
I find myself, and then I feel guilty for not thinking about it, and then yeah.
I think as long as you're thinking about it and then thinking, okay, what can I do?
Right.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
That's all that matters.
And you do what you can. You know.
Do.
All right. So one last question:
Sure, man.
what keeps you putting one foot in front of the other every day, and just what keeps you from giving up, like on your music, or
Oh,
what keeps that drive? Yeah, not like giving up. I mean, just
yeah,
giving
yeah.
up on.
Sure, sure. I was gonna say, well, my wife and my kid. No, but uh, um,
Oh, that's an answer
music.
too. I mean, that's,
Yeah, it is. It is 100%. It does play into it. For music and creative wise, every time in my life where I've gone through periods where I wasn't doing it, I was absolutely miserable because all I could think about was wanting to do it. It's just something, it's not a hobby. It's not something that I can stop because there will still be like music ideas coming to me that will sit there and ruminate in my mind and pester the hell out of me, and I have to like put them down. You know what I'm saying? I have to
right.
like record it, get it out there for people to hear it. It's like, I don't know, it would be the same as saying what keeps you like breathing or sleeping or eating or anything like that. It's not like I'll die, but I'm absolutely miserable
Yeah.
when I'm not doing it. So,
Well,
yeah.
Randy, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on
You
my
too, man.
show.
You too,
I
man. I knew it would.
Yeah, this was awesome. I'm so glad I finally got you on here.
Yeah.
And like I said, I want I want the world to know about you, and
Well, I
so
appreciate.
sit there and tell us, where everybody can find you and find your
Yeah.
music. And
Here on Mars, and that's just here on Mars. Uh, .bandcamp.com is where you can find all the music that I've made and put out. Um, there's other stuff. I usually direct people to Spotify. You can find almost everything I've done on Spotify. I'm on YouTube. Um, Usually, when you search Here on Mars on YouTube, you will get Veronica Mars, or you'll get Coheed and Cambria because they have a Here to Mars song. But if you just search like Here on Mars, Kansas City, you'll probably find me. But the main place where I hang out and talk to people is the Twitterverse. Um, and on Twitter, I am Here on Mars _ because there's some other person who just took the regular Here on Mars and has an account with like 3 followers that hasn't said anything since 2011 or something. It's just like, you dork. But I mean, I've been there. I've been Here on Mars for 3 years now. It kind of feels like my musical forever home is what
right,
I like in it. I'm probably going to be Here on Mars for the rest of my life. Because it just 100% suits my personality. It's all music written from a perspective of just kind of feeling alone and isolated in your thoughts and opinions, even though you're not. But I don't feel like I don't recognize this planet anymore. I'm a broken clock. Um, you know,
you
out
write twice
of
a day.
Yeah, exactly, and that's it.
Yeah, I wanted to just say real quick that you're one of my absolute favorite Twitter accounts. Doesn't that always
Thank-
sound kind of? You're
It
just
sounds good.
you're an
It
account.
sounds
You're just an
it's
account
a
to
good.
me.
No, no.
I always hate that account word, but you're one of the absolute favorite people I like following on Twitter because I think that you do Twitter right, and you're
Thank-
not using it as a marketing thing, and you tweet out. I don't know how to describe it. You tweet out your thoughts, and you're not constantly you're not posting links, and you're not posting images, and you're not it's not. It's the way
yeah,
Twitter
I get
should be, I
tired.
think, kind of.
Yeah,
But
I get
whatever. What do I
I
know?
get tired of that. Like that was like when I was still on Facebook years ago. That was the thing, it's like, okay, we're just sharing links now. That's all we're
Right.
doing is
Yeah.
sharing links.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's cool, share links, whatever. But yeah, I get tired of it. And yeah, you know what, man, I appreciate that. I really do. I try to keep the music marketing to a minimum, but you do have to do some of it. Now I should say, I've said a couple times during this whole talk that, you get depressed at not being able to find listeners, but you guys, you, Dave, Johnny, my other musician friends that I've grown very close to, Red, Blue, Black, Silver, Nocterminal, Bruce Allen, Bruce Allen, Bruce Alon. I don't know how to say it. I still don't know how. There's several on there that I've become good friends with, and you know what, man? I've said to myself, if I never found more listeners, that would be okay. It would still be just fine because you guys are awesome. You like and listen to everything I put out, man, and that's just, I can't ask for more than that. That's amazing, and I really appreciate you guys.
Well, it's amazing music. I mean, it's
You.
just flat out good damn music, and
Thanks, dude.
yeah, it's awesome.
Appreciate it. Keep
All
doing
right,
it.
all right, buddy. Well, I'm sure I'll have you on again at some point. And
Yeah.
until that time, take
Yeah.
care, man.
Yep. You too, man.
All right, folks, thanks for listening. Please be sure to check out my guests' links in the show notes, and please take a look at their work. You won't be disappointed. From the Waste is a nonprofit podcast. It is in no way endorsed by the creators of the media used within, nor is it intended to undermine or compete with any existing or forthcoming material. No copyright infringement is intended. From the Waste is part of the Slightly Irregular Podcast Network. Please visit sipnet.us, that's SIPNET.us, to find this podcast and other fine podcasts, including The Angry Dad Podcast, Dead Hand Radio, The Terrible Terror Podcast, Fave 5 from Fans, The Podcast from Another World, Back in Time Podcast, and the Paranormal Pativity Podcast. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, and Instagram, although I spend 99% of my time on Twitter. This podcast can be found at fromthewastes.podbean.com and on most podcatchers out there. Just look for From the Wastes and you'll find me. My WordPress blog is at fromthewastes11811.wordpress.com, and my Last Librarian blog is at thelastlibrarian.wordpress.com. If you're so inclined to shoot me an email, send it to fromthewastes@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, take cover and take care.